Welcome back to the Top 1% Book Club.
Oh,
Today, we're going to be diving into a book that I think you're going to find really, really interesting.
I am excited.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris Voss, he's a former FBI hostage negotiator, so this is going to be good.
Yeah.
So get ready to take some notes because we're about to unlock the secrets of effective negotiation.
This is going to be great.
I know. And you know, one of the things that I found so fascinating about this book was how Voss just really emphasizes the psychology
Oh, yeah.
of a negotiation.
Yeah.
Like he really breaks it down
Yeah.
and kind of gets into like the nitty gritty
Yeah.
of human behavior and like how do you actually use that to
Yeah.
advantage, you know?
I love that he doesn't shy away from that aspect of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we all know that psychology plays a huge role in how we interact with each other and how we make decisions, but so few people actually talk about it in a practical way. And Voss really just lays it all out there.
Yeah, it's like he's giving us this like secret decoder ring for understanding like
Zang.
what people really want,
Mm-hmm.
even when they're not saying it out loud.
100%.
And one of the things that just like blew my mind
Yeah.
right off the bat
Mm-hmm.
was his take on the power of no.
Okay.
He actually sees no as like the starting point
Interesting.
of a successful negotiation.
Okay, I'm curious. Tell me more.
So like, you know, most people think about negotiation. They're like, okay, how do I get to yes?
Right.
How do I
Yeah.
get them to agree with me?
Like, how do I close this deal? How do I,
Yeah.
get them sign on the dotted line?
Right.
But Voss is saying that that's actually like the wrong way to approach it.
Okay.
He's saying that when you push for yes too soon, you can actually back people into a corner.
I see. Yeah.
And it makes them defensive.
Makes sense.
They feel pressured, and they're more likely to just kind of like
Shut
shut down or
Yeah.
agree to something that they don't really want, just to like
to get out of the situation.
get out of there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like almost like a fight or flight response.
Right. When you feel trapped, you're not going to be thinking clearly or making rational decisions.
Exactly. And that's where the power of no comes in.
Okay, so how does no help?
So when you allow someone to say no, you're actually giving them a sense of control.
Interesting.
You're taking the pressure off,
Okay.
and you're letting them know that it's safe for them to disagree with you.
So you're creating a more relaxed and open environment.
Exactly. And when people feel safe and in control,
Yeah,
they're more likely to actually open up
Right.
and have a genuine conversation with you.
that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Like when you take the pressure off, people are more willing to be themselves and to really engage with you.
Exactly. So the question is, how do we actually trigger that no?
Yeah. How do you do that without seeming manipulative?
Yeah, that's the key, right?
Right.
You don't want to be like, some sleazy salesperson.
Right, exactly.
So Voss suggests that you start by asking questions that are likely to elicit a no response.
Okay.
For example, instead of saying, do you have a few minutes to talk?
Right.
You would say something like, is now a bad time to talk?
Ah, I see what he's doing there.
Right.
By anticipating the no, you're giving them permission to decline without feeling bad.
Exactly. And it's so subtle,
Yeah.
but it makes a huge difference.
It's like you're respecting their time and their boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once they've said no, they're much more likely to actually relax
Right.
and engage with you in a meaningful way.
It's counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense.
It is totally counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but it works.
That's so interesting. So by embracing the no, you're actually setting the stage for a more collaborative and productive negotiation.
Exactly. And that leads us to another one of Voss's key principles, which is tactical empathy.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but I'm not sure I fully understand it.
Yeah.
What's tactical empathy?
Tactical empathy, it's not just about like, being nice to someone
Right.
or feeling sorry for them.
Mhm.
It's about actually understanding their perspective
Okay.
and using that understanding to guide the negotiation.
So it's like strategic empathy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not just being empathetic for the sake of being empathetic.
Right.
You're actually using it as a tool
I see.
to achieve your goal.
To get what you want.
Right.
Okay.
So it involves things like really actively listening to the other person,
Mm-hmm.
observing their body language,
Yeah.
paying attention to their tone of voice,
Okay.
and even like the specific words that they use.
So you're trying to get a deeper understanding of what's driving them.
Exactly. You're like an emotional detective.
I like that, emotional detective.
Right. You're trying to figure out like what are their needs? What are their fears?
Their motivation.
What are their motivations? And once you have that understanding, you can actually use it to your advantage.
Okay, so how do you use it to your advantage without seeming manipulative?
Right. Well, it's not about manipulating people.
Yeah.
It's about finding solutions
Yeah.
that meet everyone's needs.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, instead of just trying to push your own agenda,
Right.
you're actually trying to find a way to make everyone happy.
So it's a win-win situation?
Exactly. And Voss gives you all these like really cool techniques
Yeah.
for how to actually like decode people's body language
Oh, really? Like what?
and their tone of voice and stuff like that. It's really fascinating.
I would love to learn more about that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that more.
Okay.
But okay, so we've triggered the no.
Yeah.
We're using tactical empathy
Okay.
to understand our counterpart, like what's the next step in this negotiation dance?
I am hooked. Tell me more.
Labeling.
Labeling. What's that?
Labeling. This is where you actually give a name to the emotions that you're sensing from the other person.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a way of validating their feelings
Okay.
and showing them that you're really listening to them.
So instead of just like nodding along, I might say something like, it seems like you're feeling frustrated, or it sounds like you're concerned about this.
Exactly.
Okay.
And by simply acknowledging their emotion out loud,
Yeah.
you can often like just completely defuse the tension
That's powerful.
and build trust.
Right.
It shows them that you're not just trying to like bulldoze them.
Push your own agenda.
Yeah, you're not just trying to like get your way.
Yeah.
You're actually taking the time to try to understand how they're feeling.
You're actually seeing them as a human being.
Exactly. And trust is like the foundation of any successful negotiation, right?
Oh, absolutely. Without trust, you're not going to get very far.
Exactly.
People need to feel like they can trust you before they're willing to open up and be vulnerable.
Right. And Voss argues that one of the simplest yet most effective ways to build trust and rapport
Yeah.
is through mirroring.
Mirroring. Okay, isn't that a little bit like creepy?
I know, right? Sounds kind of weird.
Yeah, like monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But it's actually a lot more subtle than that.
Okay.
So mirroring is basically just about reflecting back
Okay.
your counterpart's language, behavior.
Yeah. Okay.
So you might like repeat the last few words that they said,
Oh, I see.
or match their tone of voice,
Right.
or even like subtly mimic their body language.
It's about creating a sense of like subconscious connection.
Exactly. And when you do that,
Yeah.
it sends this really powerful signal that you're on the same wavelength.
You understand them.
Exactly.
Right.
And it can just completely disarm people.
Interesting.
Like they don't even realize what you're doing.
It's happening below the surface.
But they just suddenly feel this like sense of connection with you.
Wow, that's fascinating. I never would have thought of that.
Right.
But it makes sense.
It's so powerful.
It's like you're speaking their language.
Exactly.
Both literally and figuratively.
Exactly. So we've got the power of no. We've got tactical empathy. We've got labeling, mirroring. Like it seems like we're building a pretty solid foundation.
Yeah, we've got some good tools in our toolkit.
Right. But what happens when we hit a roadblock? Like what happens when we need to move the conversation forward, but we're just kind of like stuck?
Yeah, what do you do when you reach an impasse?
That's where Voss introduces the concept of calibrated questions.
Okay, calibrated questions. What are those?
So these are open-ended questions that are designed to force your counterpart to solve your problem.
Wait, so I'm asking them to solve my problem. How does that work?
I know, it sounds crazy, right?
Okay.
But it's all about how you phrase the question.
Okay.
So instead of like making demands
Right.
or issuing ultimatums, you're asking them questions that start with how or what.
Okay.
So for example, instead of saying, you need to give me a better price,
Right.
you would say something like, how can we make this work within my budget?
Ah, I see. So you're putting the onus on them to come up with a solution.
Exactly.
That's clever.
And it's so much more effective because it doesn't put them on the defensive.
Right. You're not attacking them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not attacking them.
You're inviting them to collaborate.
You're inviting them to be a part of the solution.
I like it.
Right.
It's a much more respectful approach.
And because they're the ones coming up with the solutions,
Yeah.
they're much more likely to be invested in the outcome.
That makes sense.
Right. So calibrated questions are like this really subtle way of guiding the conversation without seeming like you're like controlling it.
It's like you're leading them down a path without them even realizing it.
Exactly. And because they feel like they're in control,
Yeah.
they're much more likely to go along with it.
This is brilliant. I can see how this would be so useful in so many different situations.
Right. It's not just about like, business deals.
Right.
It's about like any situation where you need to persuade someone.
Yeah, like getting your kids to eat their vegetables.
Exactly. Like, how can we make these vegetables taste better?
Exactly.
Right.
I'm going to try that one tonight.
Let me know how it goes.
I will.
But okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
We've talked about the power of no, tactical empathy, labeling, mirroring, calibrated questions. Like, it is a lot to take in.
It is, but it's also fascinating.
It is, right?
I'm really enjoying this.
Me too.
Yeah.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, there's more.
There's so much more.
I can't wait to hear what else Voss has up his sleeve.
Oh, you're going to love it.
Okay.
So stay tuned.
All right.
We'll be right back after the break.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've covered so much ground already. It's really fascinating stuff, right?
Yeah. It's amazing how a few simple techniques can completely change the game when it comes to negotiation.
But I have to admit, when I first started reading this book, I was a little skeptical. Like, some of these techniques, they sound a little bit manipulative.
I get that. It's natural to feel that way. But I think it's important to remember that Voss's approach isn't about trickery. It's about understanding the psychology of human interaction.
So it's more about, like, influencing people in an ethical way.
Exactly. It's about understanding how people think and behave, and then using that knowledge to communicate more effectively.
So it's about persuasion, not manipulation.
Right. Because at the end of the day, negotiation is about getting what you want,
Yeah.
but it's also about making sure that the other person feels heard and respected.
And that's where tactical empathy comes in.
Exactly. It's about understanding the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
And that can be tough, especially in those high-pressure situations where the stakes are high.
Yeah, I mean, Voss talks about some pretty intense scenarios from his time as an FBI hostage negotiator.
Yeah, like those stories are insane.
I know, right? It's like, how do you even begin to negotiate with someone who's holding a gun to someone's head?
Right. It seems impossible.
But Voss shows us that even in those extreme situations, the basic principles of negotiation still apply. You need to build rapport, understand the other side's perspective, and find common ground.
So even when you're dealing with someone who's clearly irrational, you still need to try to connect with them on a human level.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to feel heard and understood. Even hostage takers.
And that's where labeling comes in.
Exactly. You can use labeling to acknowledge the hostage taker's emotions, to validate their fears and anxieties, and to show them that you're listening.
So instead of trying to reason with them or lecture them about the consequences of their actions, you're trying to empathize with them.
Right, because when you can connect with someone on an emotional level, you can start to de-escalate the situation.
It's like you're disarming them with empathy.
Exactly. And once you've established that connection, you can start to use calibrated questions to guide the conversation towards a peaceful resolution.
So you might ask something like, what are you hoping to achieve by doing this? Or how can we make this situation better for everyone?
Right. Those kinds of questions get the hostage taker thinking about their actions and considering alternatives.
And they give you valuable information about their motivations and goals.
Exactly. So even in a hostage situation, you're still gathering information and trying to understand the other side's perspective.
Yeah, like you're playing a game of chess.
Right. You're always thinking a few moves ahead.
And you're always trying to find a way to checkmate the other side.
But in a way that benefits everyone.
Exactly. Because negotiation isn't about winning or losing. It's about finding a solution that works for all parties involved.
And that's why Voss's approach is so effective. It's not about being aggressive or manipulative. It's about being strategic and empathetic.
And it works in any situation, not just hostage negotiations.
Right. I mean, think about it. How many times have you been in a situation where you needed to persuade someone to do something?
All the time.
Right? Whether it's negotiating a raise with your boss or trying to get your kids to clean their rooms, the principles in never split the difference can help you get what you want.
It's like a superpower.
It kind of is, right? Because when you understand the psychology of negotiation, you can start to influence people in a way that feels natural and authentic.
And that's what I love about Voss's approach.
Yeah.
It's not about tricks or gimmicks. It's about using your knowledge of human nature to create win-win situations.
Exactly. It's about being a better communicator and a more effective negotiator.
So let's talk about some of the other techniques that Voss covers in his book. Like, what about black swans?
Oh, yeah. Black swans, those are those hidden pieces of information that can completely change the game.
I love that concept.
Me too. It's so powerful because often the key to a successful negotiation is uncovering those hidden pieces of information.
But how do you even find them? It seems like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Well, Voss says that black swans are always present in every negotiation. We just often miss them because we're not paying attention.
So we need to be more observant.
Exactly. We need to be more curious and more willing to dig a little deeper.
And we need to be asking the right questions.
Right, because sometimes the most valuable information is hidden in plain sight. We just need to know how to look for it.
So what are some of the signs that a black swan might be lurking nearby?
Well, Voss suggests looking for inconsistencies in your counterpart's story or behavior.
So like if they say one thing, but their body language suggests something else?
Exactly. Or if they seem hesitant to answer a certain question, or if they change the subject abruptly. Those are all signs that there might be something more going on beneath the
So
surface.
it's like being a detective looking for clues
Exactly. And once you've uncovered a black swan, it can completely shift the balance of power in a negotiation.
because you have information the other side doesn't.
Exactly. It's like having a secret weapon.
And knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. So the more black swans you can uncover, the better equipped you'll be to negotiate effectively.
This is making me want to go back and reread the book.
Me too. There's so much valuable information in there. It's like a masterclass in negotiation.
And the best part is that these techniques aren't just for hostage negotiators or high-powered CEOs. They can be used by anyone in any situation.
Right. Whether you're negotiating a salary, buying a car, or even just trying to get your kids to eat their vegetables, the principles in Never Split the Difference can help you get what you want.
So if you're ready to level up your negotiation game, I highly recommend checking out this book.
It's a game changer.
It really is.
So what other techniques did Voss talk about?
Well, he talked a lot about the importance of framing and how you can use language to influence the other person's perception of the situation.
Like how?
Well, for example, he talks about the power of loss aversion.
Mm.
Did you get to that part?
Yeah, I remember that. He said that people are more motivated to avoid losses than they are to achieve gains.
Exactly. So instead of focusing on what the other person stands to gain by agreeing to your terms,
Yeah.
you highlight what they stand to lose by rejecting them.
Right, it's like flipping the script.
Exactly. And it can be incredibly persuasive because people hate losing.
I know I hate losing.
We all do. It's like hardwired into our brains.
So you're playing on their fear of loss.
Exactly. But in a way that's ethical, of course.
Right, it's not about exploiting people. It's about understanding their motivations and using that knowledge to create a win-win situation.
Exactly. So loss aversion is one powerful framing technique.
What are some others?
Well, he also talks about the importance of setting anchors.
Anchors. What are those?
So anchors are basically just reference points that you establish early on in the negotiation.
Okay.
And they can have a huge impact on the final outcome because people tend to base their decisions on the first piece of information they receive.
So if you set a high anchor early on, you're more likely to get a better deal.
Exactly.
Right.
Because the other person will be subconsciously comparing their offer to that initial anchor.
That's fascinating. So it's all about setting the stage.
Exactly. And Voss gives some great tips for how to set anchors effectively. Like he suggests using odd numbers instead of round numbers.
Why odd number?
Because odd numbers seem more specific and less arbitrary. It's like you've put a lot of thought into your offer.
So instead of offering $500, I might offer $487.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's a small detail, but it can make a big difference.
Wow, I'm learning so much from this book.
Me too. It's really eye-opening. And there's so much more that we haven't even touched on yet.
I know, it's amazing how much ground Voss covers in this book.
He really does go deep.
Yeah, it's like a masterclass in negotiation.
It really is. And the best part is that these techniques aren't just for hostage negotiators or high-powered CEOs. They can be used by anyone in any situation.
Right. Whether you're negotiating a salary, buying a car, or even just trying to get your kids to eat their vegetables, the principles in Never Split the Difference can help you get what you want.
So if you're ready to level up your negotiation game, I highly recommend checking out this book.
It's a game changer.
It really is. And I think that's a good place to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. And I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear more.
I know, I am.
So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore even more powerful techniques from Never Split the Difference.
I can't wait.
You know, one of the things that really struck me about Voss's book was how he reframed the whole concept of negotiation.
Yeah, it's not about like this adversarial kind of like, winner-take-all approach.
Exactly. It's not about, crushing your opponent.
Right.
It's about actually finding a solution that works for everyone.
Yeah, and that's where the idea of that's right comes in, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which is like way more powerful than just getting to yes.
He talks about that a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, because it's not just about getting someone to agree with you. It's about getting them to really understand your perspective.
And to buy into it.
Yeah, to really internalize it and to see things from your point of view.
And when you get to That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you know you've really achieved something special.
Like you've reached a meeting of the minds.
Exactly. And Boss gives you all these like really specific techniques for how to actually get to
Oh, that's right.
like
Yeah.
summarizing the other person's perspective back to them
Oh, yeah, that's a good
in a
right.
way that shows that you really understand them.
Right. It shows that you're listening.
Exactly. And labeling their emotions like we talked about before.
Mm.
And using calibrated questions to kind of guide them towards that aha moment.
Yeah. It's like you're planting seeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're just like gently nudging them in the right direction.
Right. Without being pushy or aggressive.
Exactly. But one thing that I think is really important to remember with all of these techniques
Yeah.
is that they only work if you're being authentic.
Oh, absolutely. You can't fake it.
You can't fake it. People can smell a phony a mile away.
100%.
Yeah.
It's like you have to genuinely care about the other person.
Yeah.
And about finding a solution that works for everyone.
Exactly. It's not about like tricking people into doing what you want.
Yeah.
It's about actually building a relationship
Mm-hmm.
and finding a solution that benefits everyone.
Like a win-win.
Exactly.
And you know, another thing that Voss really stresses is the importance of preparation.
Oh, yeah.
Like going into a negotiation unprepared is like going into battle unarmed.
Right. You have to do your homework.
Exactly. You need to know your goals, your bottom line, and your BTNA.
Oh, yeah. You'll be TNA.
Your best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
That's a good one.
Right. So basically, what's your plan B if this negotiation falls apart?
Yeah, like what's your walkaway point?
Exactly. And knowing your BTNA gives you so much power because you're not afraid to walk away if the deal isn't right.
It takes the pressure off.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And it lets the other side know that you're serious.
That you're not desperate.
Exactly.
So preparation is key.
Absolutely. But even with all the preparation in the world, there are going to be times when things get tough.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you hit a roadblock or when the other side just isn't budging.
What do you do then?
Well, Voss has some great advice for those situations, too.
Like what?
Like, he talks about the importance of using your voice and body language effectively.
Oh, yeah, that was fascinating.
Right. Like, even subtle changes in your tone of voice or your posture can have a huge impact on the other person's perception of you.
He talks about that in the book.
Right. Like, if you want to project authority, you speak slowly and calmly.
Yeah, lower your voice a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you want to convey empathy, you use a slightly higher pitch.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want to create rapport, you mirror the other person's body language.
Just like you're speaking their language
Exactly.
without actually saying a word.
It's all about those subtle cues.
And it's amazing how much of a difference those little things can make.
Oh, absolutely. They can make or break a deal.
So it's really important to be mindful of how you're coming across
Yeah. You want to make sure that your words and your actions are aligned.
and that you're sending the right message.
Exactly.
I've been thinking about all the different ways I can use these techniques in my own life.
Me too. It's not just about business negotiations, right?
It's about everything. Like dealing with your kids, negotiating with your spouse, even just interacting with people at the grocery store.
Right. It's about becoming a better communicator and a more effective influencer.
And Voss's book gives you the tools to do just that.
It's like a superpower.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good place to wrap up our deep dive.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners have found it as insightful and engaging as we have.
I know I have.
Me too.
Yeah.
So if you're ready to level up your negotiation skills and start getting more what you want out of life,
Yeah.
I highly recommend picking up a copy of Never Split the Difference.
You won't regret it.
You won't regret it. And in the meantime, keep practicing those negotiation skills.
Every interaction is an opportunity to negotiate.
Exactly. So go out there and make it happen.
And never split the difference.
That's right. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Never Split the Difference. Thanks for listening.